Thank you very much, Danny. I'd like to ask our first question. You've recently returned from a 5-year stint at the United Nations as Israel's representative. Many have said you've been one of the most successful Israeli ambassadors to date. How would you sum up your experiences in the United Nations?
So, it was 5 years that you mentioned, Chaim, but it felt like 50 years. It was very intensive. And I think I proved we can win, even in a hostile place like the UN. And in order to win at the UN, I think we should analyze the strategy I use, and we can look at 3 main pillars. The first one is to be a proud Jew, not to hide our Judaism, to speak about our Judaism. I even read from the Bible a few times in the Security Council, and I gained the respect from many ambassadors from Muslim countries. And today we see the fruits of the work we did in the last 5 years together with Ambassador Nikki Haley, Ambassador Kelly Craft, and we are looking forward for the ceremony in the White House on Tuesday. But we started everything here, and I think bringing Judaism to the front was a major part of that. The second part was to actually bring Israel to the UN, and Chaim, we took part in an event celebrating the reunification of Jerusalem, and we did so many events to present Israel, and we brought many ambassadors to Israel. Over the years, I led delegations with over 100 UN ambassadors. For most of them, it was the first time. I remember, taking Ambassador Nikki Haley on a helicopter and showing her the city of Jerusalem from above, Judea and Samaria, the Golan Heights. So it was a remarkable experience for all of them. And the third pillar is the issue of technology. I think we can use our technology more and to present it and to help other countries. We all believe in Tikkun Olam, and I think it will be a great experience for us to do more in terms of sharing innovation and technology. So if you take those 3, to be a proud Jew, to bring people to Israel, and to actually use our technology and being a startup nation, that was the secret recipe for the change. And we saw that change in different votes. I was elected to different positions. I became the first Israeli to chair a UN committee, Chaim. And believe me, I chaired many positions in the Israeli parliament, in the Likud party, but for the first time to enter the room where you have 193 ambassadors and you are chairing the legal committee, it was something which I'm very proud of.
That certainly is a very impressive record, Danny. And there's many other achievements that you have had. Some of them I shared with you. For example, I had the privilege to do a joint event with you in 2017 when we celebrated the 50 years of the liberation of Jerusalem, having an event in the United Nations building. Maybe you can describe that event.
So for many people, they looked at the UN as a problem and as a hostile ground. And I said, let's actually use this place to our goals. So we actually took the hold of the UN and we held events in the building of the UN. One of the events that Chaim mentioned was a celebration of the reunification of Jerusalem, where we celebrated 50 years since we liberated and reunited the old city with the new city, and we were able to reunify Jerusalem. And it was amazing to see ambassadors from so many countries coming and celebrating with us. It was a huge celebration with singers, speakers, and they still speak about it. And another event we did in the General Assembly Hall, a place where usually you speak about anti-Israel resolutions, we actually held a huge seminar against BDS. And we had 3,000 students from all around the world, mainly from North America, who came into the building, raised the Israeli flag, sang the Israeli anthem. And that was a remarkable moment that in this place, we proved that we are proud and we are actually taking over this building. And today it's much easier to represent Israel in this building. It's much easier to get elected. And I think we should continue with that proactive approach not to be shy, not to be apologetic, and to speak about our rights to the land. You know, Chaim, I know Keep Jerusalem in Eshkachech for many years, and you always, you know, show people the connection between the old and new, and we speak about rights to the land. And that's what I did at the UN. I spoke about our rights without being apologetic. And when I speak about our rights, I start with the biblical rights, I speak about the historical rights, and then I go to international law. And we can prove it. And if we insist, we convince people. And you know, I remember when I finished the tour of the ambassadors in Israel, I gave each one of them a copy of a book that was written not by a Zionist leader like Jabotinsky or Herzl. I gave them a book that was written by Mark Twain. And I told them, read the book and look what he writes about his experiences in the Holy Land. And basically he wrote that when he came to visit Israel in 1868, there was nothing there. He saw poor communities where Jews lived in unbearable conditions. So I told them, you know, it's not us saying about what we did in this country that we will hear all the time. It's Mark Twain. So we can prove the historical connection to the land. The biblical rights, for me, it's enough. For some, it's not enough. But also when we discuss international law, because I remember a debate I had with the German ambassador, and he told me, how can you speak about biblical rights in the Security Council? We have to speak only about international law. And I told him, for me, the biblical rights, it's enough. The historical rights, it's more than enough. But let's speak about international law. And we go back to Balfour Declaration, 1917. We go back to San Remo, 1920. And we go back to the establishment of the UN, 1945, where they adopted all previous resolutions. So basically the UN, the same UN that we all condemn, the UN itself in its charter is actually recognizing our rights to Jerusalem, our rights to Judea and Samaria. So we should not be apologetic about that, and we should be very proud of that.
Thank you, Danny, for that. And I'd like to move on to the next question. Next week, Israel and the UAE, and perhaps also Bahrain, are supposed to sign peace treaties and normalization plans at the White House. What is your take on this historic event?
So, you know, over the years, I worked very closely with many delegates from the Gulf, especially after the signing of the Iran deal. We worked together against Hezbollah, against Hamas, against radicals in the region, and mainly against Iran. But we did it behind closed doors, and now it's changing. You know, I had the opportunity to visit the UAE as the Israeli ambassador to the UN, an official visit, important one. And I remember that, you know, they asked me, Danny, we respect you, but please keep it quiet. Don't post it on Facebook, no pictures. And I told them, why you are afraid? Look at Egypt and Jordan. You know, you will get empowered if you will recognize Israel. And now it's happening, and we are very grateful for President Trump for pushing it. And I think we will see more countries. And I can tell you one thing which is important. 2 years ago, when the US moved its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, many of the European leaders said that there will never be peace in the region because of that. And I told them exactly the opposite. I told them that it's a reality check, and we will see countries actually acknowledging that they have to move forward, and they cannot wait for the Palestinians all the time. And I think that it is exactly what's happening now. And I worked very hard to change the paradigm, to explain to the leaders of the world that in order to help the Palestinians, they have to move forward without waiting for the Palestinians. That is the only way to bring them back to the negotiating room. And that's what's happening today. We see Egypt, Jordan, UAE, Bahrain, hopefully we'll see Oman, Morocco, Sudan. So we're seeing a new wave in terms of supporting Israel, and we are grateful for that.
And can I just ask you, Danny, what do you think about whether it's worth delaying or even canceling plans to assert Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria for the benefit of these peace treaties? The rumors are that Oman, Sudan, Chad, and maybe even Saudi Arabia will join later too.
So Chaim, you know me for many years, and I see here, you know, friends from Canada. I see Larry and Avi, and I feel like people who actually supported me. Aaron, Shalom. I see like all of you, and Brian Decker joined us now. I see friends who supported me in the last 20 years, you know, my campaigns, and I always speak very directly. And also on this issue, I was very direct. And today, I'm not in public position, so I can say everything I believe. The issue of sovereignty, it's about us deciding our future. We should not wait for anyone, and we should not ask for permission from anyone. And I want to remind you that when you look at the history, when Menachem Begin applied sovereignty over the Golan Heights in 1981, the US was not supportive. President Reagan condemned, he actually punished Prime Minister Begin for doing it. And look today that we are all grateful that we have the Golan Heights, and we see what's happening with the radicals in Syria. And the US actually is recognizing our sovereignty over the Golan Heights. So I think we should actually decide ourselves, and then we can convince others. I think we should do it. We should not be afraid. And exactly like we did with the embassy, I was very involved with moving the US embassy, the embassy of Guatemala to Jerusalem. And now I'm involved, even though I'm not in a public position, of moving the embassy of Honduras. And I hope that it won't be on this year, it will be next year, the Jewish year, I mean. I think by the end of 2020, we will see another embassy in Jerusalem. And it's only about us deciding our future. And I think, and I call my colleagues in the government to have the courage to take the right decisions. And I think also it will support the peace treaty with the Palestinians in the future. Like moving the embassy, it will be a reality check for the future. And I think we will also get the support from the US. So we don't always have to do what we think will satisfy the US, our strongest ally. And I wrote a book about it, Chaim, a few years ago, Israel, the Will to Prevail. And in my book, I actually prove my idea that when we take the right decisions, even if it is against the US position, it is in the long run, it supports the US and Israel. And we can go back to the attack on the nuclear reactor in Iraq. We can go back to the attack on the nuclear reactor in Syria. Always the US was against such bold moves, but after a few years, they acknowledged it was the right thing to do.
Nice. I'm going to allow questions very soon, Danny, but I'd like to just point out that in less than 2 months, there are elections in the US. The campaign and general atmosphere has been particularly hostile between the two parties. What are your impressions, your forecasts, and where should Israel be in this process?
So, you know, I always say that we are not getting involved in politics outside of Israel. We have enough politics in Jerusalem. You know, in the last 18 months, we had 3 cycles of election, and I hope not, but maybe we're heading for a 4th one in December. So we respect democracy. But having said that, you know, when I'm being asked about President Trump, we have to acknowledge what he did in the last few years. We have to acknowledge the fact that he pulled out from the Iran deal, moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and recognizing our sovereignty over the Golan Heights. And now we have the peace treaties with the UAE, Bahrain, and hopefully more countries. So you cannot ignore that. So we have to speak about it, we have to acknowledge it, and we will let the US voters to vote about it.
That was a diplomatic answer. And I'm glad that you're not publicly taking sides. Some people say that I got a WhatsApp recently that somebody from Florida told me that the American media had accused you of interfering in the U.S. elections.
Well, you know, when I'm interfering, you feel it. You can ask my colleagues in the government, but in Israel, we are not involved in the U.S. Elections, and we are worked with both administration. But we are, as I said before, we have to acknowledge the great support we had in the last 4 years, and to be grateful for that.
Yes. And Danny, just as a final question, then I'm going to hand it over to the audience. We're about to enter the high holiday period of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. At the end of Yom Kippur, just like at the end of the Pesach Seder, we chant L'Shana Haba'a B'Yerushalayim, and here in Israel we say B'Yerushalayim HaBenuya, next year in Jerusalem, or next year in rebuilt Jerusalem. How do you view Jerusalem in the next year, 5781? What still needs to be done that we can make it an even better, more secure, and more Jewish Jerusalem?
So, you know, we are entering the new year. Hopefully, we will not be under full closure here in Israel, and it won't be easy to go to the synagogue or to go in Sukkot to the Kotel. It will be a different year for a different holiday for all of us. But I think, first of all, we should be grateful for what we have. We should not take it for granted. You know, that's what I tell my kids every time we go in the old city. I tell them, you know, your grandparents couldn't walk in the old city. They had to come and look from afar. And we should be grateful for what we have today. But we have to do more. We have to do more in terms of speaking about the fact that Jerusalem is safe for Jews, Christians, and Muslims only when it's under full Israeli sovereignty, and we should explain it to leaders and influential people from all around the world. And I think we have to do more in terms of presence of Jewish communities in Jerusalem. At the end of the day, it's all about numbers. And I think what you are doing and other organizations, it's a blessing. And I hope we will see more building. You know, that's when I visit communities in Jerusalem and outside of Jerusalem, my first question to all of the mayors is, show me what's happening in terms of building. How many apartments you are building now, how many families will move in, and how many kindergarten you will open next school year. And if the answer is that we are closing kindergarten because we don't have new construction and new young families, that's when we have a problem. So I wish that next year we will open many kindergartens in Jerusalem and around Jerusalem, and we will continue to work together to secure our beautiful capital.
I don't think I've mentioned God.
Thank you very much, Danny. I'd like to open the meeting now to questions. And if anybody has a question for Danny, I know some have asked it through the chat. So please unmute yourself, and you're welcome to ask your question.
What are your political plans for the future?
You can say your name, please. If you can just say your name, please, first, and then.
This is Mike Schwartz calling from Jerusalem. What are your political plans? What are your plans? What in the future, in the coming future?
So, Mike, I came back with a lot of energy and experience, and I intend to be active in the public life. You know, I won't do it immediately. My dear friend Nikki Haley told me to be patient about making declarations, but for sure, you know, I wasn't quiet when I left. And I intend to come back with all the knowledge and experience and connections and to work on behalf of the people of Israel. So personally, maybe it's good for me to have elections soon, but I think for the sake of our government and democracy, I prefer that we will wait and we will allow the government to function. It's about time that they will start to work together, but I'm sure that we will have elections. And once we will have elections, I will be able to come back and be involved publicly.
Hey, Danny, it's Darren Reamer. I hope
you're doing
well.
Danny,
Oh.
I hope you remember me.
Sorry,
Call kavod to you.
If we can just let Aaron Rima ask his question, please.
Oh, go ahead.
And then
Go ahead.
you don't know. Sorry.
Yeah. Hi, Danny. Just calling. I'm just zooming in from a very raining and cold northern Quebec, and we're looking forward to this Tuesday to host you in Montreal. I understand you're coming to us virtually, and we'll be watching you in a drive-in movie theater. So there'll be hundreds of people attending, and we'll be in cars, and we'll be eating kosher sushi and great food. But anyways, that's not the point. The point, bottom line is, you skirted the answer Chaim asked you, and perhaps we'll take one last shot at it, and that is the possibility of sovereignty being delayed rather than being canceled. Could you say something about that, if possible? Toda.
So I think I answered that question, Aaron. At the end of the day, we don't need to receive permission to apply sovereignty from anyone. At the end of the day, it's a decision of the Israeli government, period. And we can do it without getting permission from anyone. And I think, we had a momentum for that. And by the way, when I spoke about sovereignty 5 years ago in the Knesset, people thought that I was crazy. It said, how can you speak about it? It will never happen. And look where we are today, that the president of the US and leaders from all over the world are actually discussing whether to do it or not to do it. So we are in a better position, but we haven't completed it. And I think we have to continue to push forward and not to ask for the right timing or to wait for the right timing. There is never right timing for bold decisions. When Ben-Gurion established the state of Israel, he got a phone call from the US, and they asked him not to move and not to do anything regarding Jerusalem. It was supposed to be an international city. You know what he did? The next morning, he moved the Knesset, our parliament, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So the issue of timing will always be a problem. So I think the timing is always now.
Thank you very much, Danny. Sarah?
Yes.
Sarah. Please, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Nice to see you again virtually. Shana Tova, kol hakavod on your service. You talked now about having taken officials on tours and showing them the facts on the ground in Israel. How concerned are you with the new progressives that are in Congress or coming in, not only on a national level, but I'm here in New York. There are many progressives that were coming in through the primaries. They are openly hostile to Israel on a city, state, and national level. So how concerned are you about the erosion of bipartisan support for Israel?
So I think we still have the support from most Americans. That's what's important. But we shouldn't be quiet when we hear hatred against Israel or anti-Semitic remarks. We should be loud and condemn it. And I will give you one example. Maybe, Chaim, when you referred about people who criticized me when I was in office, because when Bernie Sanders, attacked our prime minister viciously, I couldn't be quiet and sit idly by. I attacked Bernie Sanders. So I wasn't attacking the party. I wasn't attacking the candidate. I was attacking Bernie Sanders, who used a language that was not suitable against my prime minister. And the same for Corbyn from the UK. Whenever we see someone who is anti-Semite, or we see somebody who is hostile to Israel, we have to speak up and we have to be on the offensive side. So I'm not worried, but we shouldn't be quiet. So if we have elected leaders taking Israel in order to promote their goals and attacking Israel, we should not allow it and we should speak up.
Thank you.
Avi Sivan, please, Avi, you wanted to ask a question.
Hi, guys. First of all, I want to thank Danny for his hard work. And I don't know, not too many people know that he is all behind the scene, is doing all of this. Even for the peace now that everybody is talking about the peace, I think we should credit Danny for that, for the hard work that he's been doing. Frankly speaking, I don't think any ambassador in the past did what Danny did. So we have to thank him for that. The second question is, I wanted to find out what is Danny is going to do. Is he going back to Israel, or there is a rumors that he's moving to Australia? We want him here with us, but we want him to go mala mala, what we're saying. So we need to find out what he's doing. And I want to wish Danny and everybody here Shana Tova as well at the same time.
Thank you, Avi. And I will take this opportunity to conclude the session. But, you know, Avi, you came to the UN and you saw me in action. And you saw that I have a lot of passion in everything that I'm doing. Both in the Knesset, in the government, and also at the UN. And I intend to continue with that passion. Yes, there were a few offers for diplomatic posts, but you know, I haven't decided yet with my family. We decided to go back to Israel because we want to be in Israel. So I have, you know, it's not even a discussion with my girls, with my son, with my wife. So for me, I'm starting to plan my moves here in Israel. And by the way, I'm going to give all of you a call and ask for your support when the time will come. So be ready for that. And I can guarantee you one thing, that I will continue with the passion. And I think that's what we need in Israel. We need to have leaders who have the passion to make change, to have the passion to see more Jewish communities, to see more Jews coming to live in Israel. And when I grew up with Betar, in Betar movement, you know, I worked with many prime ministers, and I learned a lot from all of them. But I always remember the night I sat down with Prime Minister Shamir, and I asked him about his days in the underground when he led the Lehi underground. And I told him, what is your piece of advice for a young guy who wants to make a change? And he told me that you need the passion to make that change. So I want to thank all of you for being so passionate about Israel, supporting Israel. I know that, as I mentioned at the beginning, you want to come to celebrate with us, but it will take probably a few more weeks. We are in the middle of a second wave, and hopefully it will be better soon. And I want to wish all of you Shana Tova, Gmar Chatima Tova, and to thank you for standing with us and supporting us unconditionally. So Chaim, Yishar Koach to you and to your team, and I'm looking forward to see you all here in Jerusalem.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you very, very much. There are other people that are waiting in line to ask you questions, Larry Zeitman and other people that you know. But I think you have to leave. Do you have to leave?
Yes, unfortunately I have, but Larry should invite me to Canada. And once we'll be able to fly, I will have to come and continue there.
Danny, you're always welcome.
Thank you, Larry.
And I wanted to tell you, Danny, that the new leader of the Conservative Party is a great friend. Listen, we all lament the fact that Stephen Harper hasn't been the Prime Minister for 5 years. But the new leader, Aaron O'Toole, is a great friend of the Jewish community and of Israel. I don't know if you met Aaron, but the first opportunity you get, you should come to Canada, and you should come to see Aaron, and I'd be delighted to take you to Aaron in the office of the leader of the opposition. And Bezrat Hashem, we should get rid of Trudeau soon, and Aaron should be the Prime Minister.
Thank you.
So I will take care of
on your service as ambassador. You did a great job.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you very much.
I hope to.
Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. We are signing off now on our Sunday brunch Zoom talk, and thank you very, very much for all of you that attended. We had over 50 people this session, and I'll keep you updated about the new Zoom talks that are coming up in the following weeks. And Shana Tova, Ktiva v'Chatima Tova to everybody. Kol Tov and Shalom.
Bye-bye. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
We'll carry on. If anybody has any comments, Danny's left us, but if anybody still wants to make some comments on the recording and on the screen now. You're welcome to chip in.
Hello, Chaim. Can you hear me? It's Pamela.
Hi there, Pamela. Nice to hear you from sunny Florida.
Since we all have you, why don't you give us a 5-minute update on what's going on in Jerusalem? My concern is with some success in the Trump plan with the Gulf states jumping on board, which is wonderful. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Israel in the future, whichever administration takes over, to make peace with the Palestinians based on the Trump plan, which involves East Jerusalem. Can you speak on that?
Well, if Trump gets back in and the Trump plan comes up again, I actually did a tour this morning for a member of Knesset from the Blue and White Party, Michal Kotler-Wunsch. For those Canadians know it, she's the daughter of Erwin Kotler, and she's now a member of Knesset in Benny Gantz's party. And I can tell you that the Blue and White Party are definitely hawkish on Jerusalem. They want to keep a united Jerusalem. And the Trump plan is the first American plan that does not evict any Jewish people from their homes, which is an amazing thing. It does disconnect certain peripheral Arab neighborhoods from Jerusalem, but as far as the peace plan is concerned and the relevance to Jerusalem, it's pretty luxurious as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, the very fact that the Trump plan recognizes a Palestinian state is problematic for those people who don't want another foreign entity west of the Jordan. But at the same time, I think that there's wiggle space when it comes to the Trump plan. The question, with regard to Jerusalem, that is, the question is, if the Biden administration comes in, then that could return us to Kerry's plans, Obama's plans, which were definitely threatening to Jerusalem. And therefore, we in Israel and our organization in particular have been applying a lot of pressure both to the politicians as well as to the leaders of the country to implement policies that will be irreversible when it comes to Jerusalem. For example, creating a greater Jerusalem, annexing areas like Ma'ale Adumim and Givat Ze'ev and the Gush Etzion block to Jerusalem, increasing the Jewish majority in Jerusalem significantly, in fact, more than doubling it, and to make sure that the Arab minority, which is a very large minority at the moment, over 40% of the residents of Jerusalem today are Arab, that they will not become a majority in the coming years, but rather that Israel will be able to increase its majority from 60% today to over 80 to 85% in the future. So these are things that are going on concurrently, but they are unfortunately connected to international politics. And we just have to hope that the constellation of who's in charge in Israel and who's in charge in the United States will be such that we can implement favorable policies and plans when it comes to Jerusalem.
Thank you.
Does anybody else? Thanks, Pamela. Does anybody else want to share insights or ask questions?
When are you coming to Montreal?
Hi, it's Colin here. Tell me, what's your take?
Shalom, Colin.
Shalom. Tell me, what's your take on the position on E1?
Well, E1 is an area between Jerusalem and Ma'ale Adumim that was designated to be built on in 2012 when the Palestinians tried to get themselves recognized as a Palestinian state in the UN. Netanyahu threatened to build in E1 and unfortunately never did. The only Jewish building in E1 today is a police station. But we hope that if and when, hopefully when Area C is annexed, that we have sovereignty implemented in Area C, and specifically in the neighborhoods, the cities that are adjacent to Jerusalem, like Ma'ale Adumim. So once Ma'ale Adumim becomes part of Greater Jerusalem, it will be a slam dunk to be able to develop E1, which connects Ma'ale Adumim to Jerusalem. And I think that will be a very, very significant expansion of Jerusalem and a way of maintaining and increasing the Jewish majority in Jerusalem.
Okay. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, everybody. It's good to see our friends from Switzerland, I saw people, friends from Australia, from Canada, certainly from Israel and the United States. And it's amazing that we can all get together on Zoom and share our thoughts and our ideas. And let's hope that you'll all join us in our next Zoom talk. We'll let you know in a few weeks' time who our next special guest is. And I just want to take again this opportunity to wish you all a Shana Tova, and we have a healthy, happy, and comfortable New Year. And as we say at the end of Yom Kippur and at the end of Pesach, I'll say again now, the Shana Haba'ah Yerushalayim Habniyah. Next year in the rebuilt Jerusalem. Shalom to all.
Shalom Chaim.